Hello everyone and welcome back to Made by Boo. My name is Shannon and I am coming to you from the Boise area of Idaho. I live a little bit outside of Boise, so we've had a lot of rain and flooding and a whole bunch of fun sort of spring. Get some nice weather, a little bit of not, which the upside of all of the rainy weather is you get a lot of time where you just want to be inside and knitting. So that is definitely a nice thing. I'm going to jump right into it. I have mostly knitting, a little bit of crochet, and I have two finished objects. The first one I'm going to show, it is right on top. I left all of my tags just out of reach again, like I do every time. So this color, there we go. It comes from A Busy Life. I found them on Etsy. I will link down below. And this particular set was a part of like a mystery sock set that I got. So the color is Roasted Marshmallow. Let me see if I can. I know it's not going to come in very clear. My camera doesn't have a very good automatic focus, and it's usually just out of reach for me to focus it properly. Wow. All right, so last time we saw these, I was right down here on the first sock, so I had just finished the heel. These are the Vanilla is the New Black. Yeah, Vanilla is the New Black socks. I was really, really intrigued by this heel where it's done with some ribbing and expanded. It's definitely a different look, and I thought it looked really, really cool. So I wanted to give it a try. I used the contrasting color to do two stripes at the top, and then down at the toe, I did two single row stripes as well. And I now have a completed pair of socks. I have not blocked them yet or worn them. There's a part of me that really wants to cast on because I thought this heel, I think this heel looks really, really cool, but I'm trying to wait at least until after I've blocked it and worn them to make sure that the fit of this particular heel is something that I will enjoy. It's not a hard heel to make, but it's not a heel that I know how to make without having to think about it either. So committing to make more of these right now when I still have to look at the chart in order to make sure I'm making it correctly, I'm not sure if I want to commit to that, especially if it turns out that I don't like the wear of them. So that is my completed pair of socks. I really like them. My daughters described them as bowling pin socks because I did the two stripes at the top. I really thought of them as more of like athletic looking socks, but whatever. I'm still really happy with it, and I really like just the two semi-matching stripes at the toe. So as soon as I'm done recording, I will block these, and then hopefully pretty soon I'll have kind of an opinion on how they fit. And I mean, I think if they fit well, you'll know because I'll make another pair. If they don't fit well, then you will never see this pattern on here again. So that is my first finished object. My second finished object is the one that I am the most excited about, but it was also underneath the socks because it's bigger. I am done with my data blanket. I am so excited. This, for anybody who is new here, I was studying to become a BCBA last year. I was finishing up my classes when I started doing these particular recordings. I don't talk a lot about like my job on here, but I did talk a little bit about studying and everything as I went. Part of the way that I was studying as I got close to getting time for my exam was I took a whole bunch of fluency tests so that I could practice before I took my exam. And when I started getting a little burnt out on that, I decided that I would turn it into a temperature blanket style blanket, but using my test scores. So there is no way this is going to fit all the way in. I'm going to see if I can kind of slowly lower it. This has been blocked. So this is down where we started. And, all right, yeah, I am not going to be able to slowly lower it like I wanted to. So, a whole bunch more fell down there. Little bit slower now as we get to the end. So you can see lots of different blue. We're already in the area where I started taking a whole bunch of bigger tests. Right here, this little red, I put a plastic stitch marker in when I blocked it just so that I could show where I was when we recorded 2 weeks ago. And then this is the last little bit. And I ended it with the last test where I actually passed and I was done studying. That was, I had a mini skein that I had gotten from So Happy Jane in the first ever Hand-Dyed Happy Yarn club that I did. And it is just a little like white with some sparkle. So that is what the last row is. The rest of it is done using Cascade Heritage yarn. So I have 6 different shades of blue. Then I have the black, a dark gray, a kind of, I think it's sandstone, and then a couple of rows of white. And all of those, every single one of them corresponds to a test score. So if you're looking at it here, you can see it's not very wide. When I made it, the plan, like I did a lot of my studying sitting in a chair right like this, and I happen to be right under a vent. So when the air conditioning is going, it goes really far down. And I got very cold, and so I put a little shawl on over me. And so I wanted this to be like that. And when I sit here, I know that the way the camera is, you can't totally see. But it is long enough when it wraps around me that it goes down to the chair. And then it even drips down to my feet. So it is nice and big. All right, so that is all of my finished objects. I may end up wearing this a little bit through the rest of it because it is quite soft and cozy now that it has been blocked. It was big enough that I was very happy that this is a super-wash wool because I was able to let it soak in my washer on a delicate cycle and then let the delicate cycle spin it out. Otherwise, it would have been so hard to get all the water out. And then I left it to dry for a couple of days, and the Cascade Heritage, it really does soften up a lot. So if you see this, sorry, cat hair, just laying on me the rest of the time, it's because it's so cozy. So that is all of my finished objects. I have 2 more works in progress that I worked on this week. As you kind of know, I have several other works in progress that are at a backlog, and I probably should show one of my scrappy projects. It's been a couple of weeks, so maybe just a little bit of an update with how much I got done on that in its first month of progress. So we will start with, once I start recording, all the cat hair comes up and gets on my face. So the first one we'll do is a little bit of a progress on my one scrappy project. This is the Coziest Memory by Kemper Ray. I really decided that I wanted to start working through some of my scrap yarns. I have been making socks for at least 15 years now, and I have hung on to basically all of my scrap yarn from all of that. And then additionally, in the last couple of years, I've done more things using fingering weight yarn in general that are not socks, including this. And the scraps are just starting to build up because naturally I don't want to just throw them away, but I don't actually have a huge knitting community where I am. I've moved around a lot, and so I've just kind of hung on to them. I haven't exchanged them with anybody or anything like that. And so this year I started kind of sorting and organizing some of them, and I have been sorting them into 5 categories. So I have 6 categories. I have skeins that have at least 50 grams of yarn or more. Most of the sorting is by weight. So the ones that have 50 grams of weight or more, those are enough to make like a shorty pair of socks, or even really use like heels, toes, some color work. So those are going into one group. That's probably one of my smallest groups. Not my smallest amount, but one of my smallest groups right now. Then from there, I have between 20 and 50 grams. I have an idea of the project that I'm going to do for those, but I'm kind of waiting to clear some other long-term projects out. Then I have between 10 and 20 grams of yarn. Another project is planned for that. between 5 and 10 grams of yarn, and that is what I am working on with this one. And then anything under 5 grams of yarn, that is probably my smallest quantity of yarn. That's all being kept in a bag right now. When this bag gets completely full, I will turn it into a magic knot ball and then start over. I have an idea of what I'm going to do with most of these projects. At least the 20 to 50, I think the 10 to 20. I'm already working on a project with the 5 to 10. The last category that I am also sorting is I am keeping self-striping yarn separate because some of the other projects that I want them to go in, I'm not sure I want the self-striping in there, but I'm not sure entirely what I'm going to do with that yarn because I don't have as much of it. So there's several things that I know it would go very well in general, but like I don't have enough self-striping yarn scraps in and of itself to make an entire project. I've got a few ideas, but we'll see where we end up with on that. So with the 5 to 10 gram category, I am making the Coziest Memory Blanket by Kemper Ray. I kind of resisted this one for a little while because I just wasn't sure that I would want to work on it. I know it's going to take a very, very long time. The yarn scraps that I have of this amount right now is definitely not enough for a blanket. So this is something that's going to be for years going. But I just decided, why not? I want to use up my scraps. Most of these ways of using up the scraps are going to take a very long time, so I may as well just get started on it. So as you can see, I am partway through one of the squares. This is something that I kind of pick up when I only have time to work on maybe a row or two. Every now and then if like I'm brain fried, I'll work on more than that. I decided to use the method that was described on the Crazy Sock Lady podcast previously, where she would start with the center and have them kind of like go out where each of the center points is here and then it goes out all the way. I know on her recent podcast she said she doesn't want to do that anymore, but I think for me, I'm glad I started it that way because I can just slowly build it out, and as soon as I decide it's done, it's done. Whereas if I did it out to a certain strip, I have now committed to making the blanket that long. I didn't want to do that because this way, if I decide that I hate doing this, I could technically finish this square, and I have a blanket that would be great for my kids' dolls. I could make it a little bit bigger and turn it into a blanket for the cat or into a pillow. Like, if I decide that I am just tired of working on this while it's still small, I have options between the 2 small animals in the house and the small child. And I liked the idea of committing to whatever size, like it is done when I decide it's done. So I started it at the beginning of, this is April, so March. And in the month of March, I completed 10 squares. This is probably not something I will talk about week to week because I don't make a lot of progress on it week to week, as you can guess from completing 10 squares over the course of a month. But I'll try to check in with that one periodically. The next work in progress I have is another pair of socks. I had this one kind of going as an overlap to the finished socks, so I have quite a bit of progress on it. I did show it 2 weeks ago. This is from the East Coast Yarn Company. It is a Yarn of the Month color from January called Dried Flowers. And I am just making a very simple vanilla sock, nothing really exciting about it. Like pattern-wise, I did a 2x2 rib for 20 rows. I have a little stitch marker there from where I was last time. I did do a heel flap and gusset. I mean, just basic stockinette stitch. I didn't even do a rib or anything. And I am 40 rows along on the foot. My foot is usually 55 rows before I start the toe, so I'm very close to finishing the first sock. There's not much exciting to say about it. I do really love the color, and I'm very excited to finish it, but it's not a complex pattern or anything to talk about a lot. The last work in progress I have is another blanket. It's starting to get a little bit big, so I may actually have to take this one off in order to really maneuver this one. So this one is... Oh my goodness, I am completely blanking on the name of it. It is from a homespun house. I want to say it's the Cozy Comfort Throw. The pattern will be linked down in the description. It is, I know it is definitely from a homespun house, but I'm completely blanking on the name, and I left my phone downstairs. So, I believe it is the Cozy Comfort Throw. It is all garter stitch, and it is using 2 fingering weight yarns held double. This one is almost done, but I'm using just a plain, there we go, white. It is a Knit Picks Stroll bare yarn, and then this is how much I have left. This is a advent calendar from Mothy and The Squid from 2022. So this is not last year's advent calendar. It is from the year before. It had a lot of bright colors. My daughter helped me rearrange them into a very, I think, pleasant rainbow colorway. So we are finishing up on the blues and getting into the last of the purple. I want to say that we end with a couple of pink shades. I am currently on color number 20 of 24. So I have made a lot of progress. In my best week, my best 2 weeks, I completed 4 colors over 2 weeks. And I have about 4.5 colors left to go before I am done. I'm not planning on doing a border of any kind. I know sometimes people do like an I-cord border. I honestly think that it looks really good without it, and I'm just going to bind it off when I get to the end and call it a day. So I have my little, it is a Winnie the Pooh Honey Pot stitch marker there. The stitch marker came from a So Happy Jane Hand-Dyed Happy Yarn Club box. So I got through 2 full colors and about maybe 1 color between those 2. So about 3 colors total in the last 2 weeks. I definitely had a bit more of a focus on completing my data blanket because I knew I could finish that and block it. This is my next big project that I really want to focus on finishing. I was really working hard to get those 2 blankets done, partially because it is going to be getting a little bit warmer in my area soon, and these are definitely big enough that when they're on your lap, it is a lot. But I also still I'm looking over and I only see 2 long-term projects that are knitting or crochet that are still like in progress. I think they're both knitting. I have a second data blanket because there was a whole bunch of tests and it was being divided into 2 blankets that I need to start. And then I have several other things, especially scrappy projects that I would like to get going, but I've been trying to clear some of these ones that I have started and just haven't made a lot of progress on first. So let me rearrange what I have here and then I can talk a little bit more about that. All right, so I have readjusted everything around me. I do have a few acquisitions sitting here at my feet. So we'll go ahead and get into those, and then we'll talk a little bit more about my upcoming knitting plans and such. I know you've seen the works in progress, but we can talk more about the other stuff too. Anyways, so the first thing that I have is from Lady Pearl. So it was a nerdy knit kit that I found on Etsy. And I saw some of the past themes, thought it sounded pretty cool. The first theme I got, honestly, I didn't actually really know. It was from Our Flag Means Death Season 2. So some of the references in this, I didn't know because it's not something that I watch. I am in love with the yarn, however. So it came with a few little accessories that I know not all of them are going to show up very well. It has a bath bomb shaped like a skull. A few little stitch markers. So this one is a tiny bottle with a letter in it. Apparently you can open it up and read the letter. 2 other stitch markers that have like burned pictures into them, and a merman sticker. So all that in and of itself was cool. I'm sure I would enjoy it more had I happened to see the show. But, you know, you take a risk on something you may not get. Like, if it's a mystery, you may not get something that you are prepared for. The yarn itself, though, I was deeply in love with this color. The colorway is called Calypso's Birthday. And this is just absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if you can see the sparkle in it, but the blues, the bright greens, the paler greens, absolutely love it. Very much oceany. Totally worth it just for this colorway. These will probably be a pair of socks for my mother because I think she would really like it. And I used to knit her a few more socks, and then I stopped for a little while, and so I've been slowly making up for it and replenishing her hand knit socks because I know she likes them. I know it is getting a little bit warmer, but sometimes your feet get cold in the summer too, so you can have hand knit socks year round as far as I'm concerned. So the next thing that came in the mail, I'll do it in chronological order that way. This is another thing I found on Etsy. Let me see. It is from Falling Leaf Fibers, and it was a travel-themed box that I found on Etsy, and it was the World Tour collection. This was from March, and it was Ireland themed. I did look online, and the next theme I could find was Ecuador, which Ireland, I have been to Ireland. I really enjoyed Ireland. I've been there several times. Not in a while, but so it was one of those where it definitely pushed me a little bit more to get that. Ecuador I think would be cool, but I don't have the same connection to Ecuador, so I have not decided if I'm going to order it. The first thing that was in here was Shamrock Shortbread. I can't eat gluten, but my family will deeply love those, so that was cool for them. A silver Irish at Heart bookmark, a 4-leaf clover stitch marker, and then, of course, the yarn. And the colorway is just World Tour March Ireland. I was really expecting it to be something that was like a bright or even like a solid Kelly green something. So I really like that they didn't go with the obvious, but it still somehow makes me think of Ireland. I feel like I went on a trip once. I happened to be with my mom, one of my brothers, and my sister, and we were in Dublin. It was really rainy that day, and this is one of those things that kind of makes me think of that because it has, like, the grass in Ireland is, of course, very, very green, but the grays and the whites and everything also make me think of the clouds and the rain, and obviously they didn't know about that trip when they made this color, but it makes it a little more special for me. And the last acquisition I have, this is my April? It's got to be the April Yarnable since we are in April. Sometimes I'm not sure what month something is actually labeled for. It did come in within the last week, so I'm not sure if everyone who gets it will have ordered it. If you have not yet received your most recent Yarnable, feel free to look away. I don't normally pay that much attention to timestamps, otherwise I promise to put it down here, but I know I'm going to forget. So if you do not want to see it, it would be a really good time to look away right now. So the accessories that came with it is wildflower seed tabs. So it's almost like a matchbook, but they have little paper with seeds in it that theoretically you could just kind of stick somewhere and plant some wildflowers. Then I have tip toppers, so little needle stoppers from Hypnotic Yarn. They are tiny donuts. And a micro puzzle that appears to have some donuts on it. I like doing puzzles. I don't tend to do a lot of puzzles. I think partially just because if I do a lot of puzzles, I'm not knitting. Like, it's something where I can't do that and something else with my hands. So sometimes I do it, but I haven't done it much lately. My husband has been really enjoying doing puzzles, so he may enjoy doing this one. I'd say one of my kids might, but they are very small pieces, and the child who likes puzzles is also very small. And then the colorway for this time is Life is Short, Eat the Donut. And it is, I don't know if you can really see the colorful speckles in there very well, but it definitely has kind of that, it almost has the look of like a glazed donut, but with sprinkles, which, I mean, you don't really see a lot of like glazed donuts just with sprinkles, but I'm kind of glad they did it that more neutral with the sprinkles because I think it's very pretty. So that is the acquisitions. Not a ton. I did expect to have at least one more thing come in, and who knows, it may come in later today. It's not in yet. I am still waiting on the last month of the Mysterious Cabin from Les Garçons, And I got a shipping notification for it, but it did not have tracking information on it. The other previous months I didn't get shipping notifications, so not having the tracking doesn't really surprise me. It's just more of I got the shipping notification, and I know it is coming from a little bit farther, but I got the shipping notification on the same day as the Yarnable. So I was kind of hoping it would be here before today because the Yarnable arrived a few days ago. It'll probably arrive very, very soon, and I am still really, really hoping that this last one will be based on the bat in the picture. But we will see, I guess. So yeah, that is all of my acquisitions. So that just kind of leaves talking about some of my upcoming knitting plans, which may take a moment. I have a few plans. So my upcoming knitting plans is still trying to work through several of these long-term projects. So at the beginning of the year, I kind of wrote down all of the long-term projects that I currently had going. And of course, I also added another one in towards the end of last year, beginning of this year. 2 of those long-term projects are getting close, or done or close to done. This was one of them. The data blanket was one that I really just decided to focus on and get it done, and I am so glad that I did. It definitely helped to count out the rows because that gave me a nice measurable way of knowing how close to the end I was getting. I did end up being a little bit off. I kind of figured I might be off by about 10 rows or 10 tests because some of the tests I did 2 rows for, and I didn't count them as 2 rows, so I was counting the number of tests left, not the number of rows, and I ended up having 5 more tests than I had previously counted for. But that's still within a decent range of counting. So this one is done. The other one I have is the Cozy Comfort Throw that I showed earlier, which, as you could see, was very close to done. I'm hoping to be able to finish that within the next couple of weeks. It should be very doable, especially if I'm putting a lot of focus into it. So the other 2 long-term projects that I am seeing that I still have going is I do have my Geo Gradient shawl. I am halfway through clue 2 on that one, and that was my plan that as soon as I finished this, that was going to become the focus. I am not showing that one today, though, because instead of doing a lot of work on that over the last week, I instead did a little bit of extra work on my Vanilla is the New Black socks because I really wanted to finish these as well. And so now that these are done, the time that I was using for this and then these will now be going to the Geo Gradient. I'd really like to move through that one as well. I know it is getting warm, and so a shawl, it's not really shawl weather, but I still want to get that off the needles before I start too many other big projects. And then the last long-term project I have planned to kind of go after the Geo Gradient, and that is the Advertence shawl. It was a year-long mystery knit-along from last year from Expression Fiber Arts, and it is mosaic knitting. I just kind of fell behind, and I completed June. So I have 6 months left on it to go. I have all the pattern. I still really want to finish it because otherwise it's like half a shawl. Some of the colors that I had chosen to use, like the way I was picking my colors was a little bit strange and I was not overly excited about it. But I still want to finish it even with my strange color choices. In addition to those, I do want to knit myself like a short sleeved shirt that I could wear in the warm weather. I attempted to do it last year and ended up finishing that shirt in January. So I'd really like to do a little bit better work on that this year. And my plan is to start that one after I finish the other blanket that is on my needles, so that I can try to do that in the warm weather. I'm doing a much simpler pattern than I did last time as well, which I think will help. But we'll see. It may be another time where I am finishing my summer shirt midwinter, and one of these years I may realize to start the summer shirt in midwinter and not finish the summer shirt in midwinter. That is all I have for right now, and somebody is knocking on my door, so until next time, have a very happy making.